When we bought this house 9 years ago, I had no plans to do anything dramatic with the outside and the insulation, but we weren't aware straight away of the problems that we would have. It got to mid-September and we thought, well, we'll run the heating. And I put the heating on and the gas boiler roared away. The radiators got warm, but the house didn't. It got slightly warmer, but it was apparent that we had a bit of a problem. To just give some context, the house was built 1939. It's in typical style of the era. It has 9-inch thick blocks called pop blocks for the walls. There's no cavity in the walls. So they're really very poorly insulated walls. And although the house had modern windows and it had attic insulation, I could see that we weren't going to be able to heat it properly unless we could do something about the walls. Plus we were spending a fortune not heating the house. That's one of the worst things that can happen. You know. So I looked at insulation systems, and the thing that was recommended at the time was exterior insulation. The idea being, if you insulate the exterior of the house outside the walls, you wrap everything inside a nice warm envelope, a warm jacket, and the walls will then act as a heat store. You have thermal mass so that you can run the heating in the evening and the house will stay warm during the day. It's a fantastic idea, and it's used in the passive house system, the German passive house system, quite effectively as well. So thermal mass is the thing. You can insulate inside, but you don't have that thermal battery, you might call it, effect. So exterior is the way to go. And I did a bit of research and I looked at what was pretty much the only systems on the market at the time, which was systems that involved polystyrene blocks, which you put all over the wall, and then there were several layers of, there's a binding membrane, and then several layers of screed and a finishing coat on top that would make it look just like a brick house on the outside, except with slightly thicker walls. And I looked at these and I thought, I don't trust it, because the polystyrene blocks weren't breathable. And I thought, all walls breathe, even a brick wall. You've got moisture vapour coming out of the bricks from the air that's passing through the walls, and when it reaches the cold exterior of the house, or at some point in the insulation, it's going to condense out, and you'll get water inside and behind the insulated material. And I thought eventually that'll cause a lot of damage. I couldn't read anything much about this effect, but I kind of knew that it was going to happen. So I thought, no, I'm going to do it differently. The other thing I didn't like about the cladding systems is they had to be professionally applied as well. You had to go on training courses and that to do the screed properly. So I thought, can't be doing all that. So I went back to basics, and I started thinking about how insulation could be breathable, how you could wrap a house in something that would let the water out but wouldn't let water in, because we have a very high rainfall here in Cornwall. The weather can get quite atrocious at times. And I came up with a system. The system involved building a lightweight frame all around the exterior of the house, and behind the frame putting rock wool. Just the normal insulation that you'd normally have in a party wall or something like that, or a cavity. But I thought, let's put it inside the frame, and then forming a layer between the rock wool and the frame itself. I put a breathable membrane, which is a sort of thing that's used by builders a lot. You particularly use them in attics, in roofs, to keep the roof rafters ventilated but stop water penetrating. It's like Gore-Tex really, I suppose, except for houses. And yeah, I put this stuff, and then the frame itself made a bit of an air gap, and on the outside I put cladding. So I had basically this layer, although it's not waterproof, it keeps most of the driving rain off. That which penetrates, you've got an air gap. So the idea is that the water would run down the inside. Any water that vanished across the air gap still cannot penetrate in liquid form because of the semi-permeable membrane, which only lets water vapour through. It doesn't let water liquid through. Quite clever stuff. But water coming from the inside of the house, condensing out maybe behind the insulation or within the insulation, which is a more common effect, would be able to pass as in vapour form through the semi-permeable membrane out into the air gap and away. The air gap was ventilated at the top and a bit at the bottom. The windows were a bit of a special case because I didn't want to have a thermal bridge. If I'd left the windows in position, the outside of the window, which is in contact with cold air, forms a very easy passageway for heat which travels through window frames like water through a pipe. Into the in contact with the inside walls of the house, it would cool the area wall all around. So I moved the windows out into the frame and mounted them using a plywood box, so that everything inside the house was wrapped. All the walls were wrapped in this fiberglass, no contact with the outside. And this was the system. This was a trial wall I did. I did this bathroom wall first, just this section, because the bathroom, this is north facing. The bathroom was the coldest room in the house. Cold to the extent where we had mould on the walls continuously, even though we were trying to heat it, it just didn't work. So I thought this will be the tester. And when we fired up the heating, the bathroom was noticeably warmer and the mould went. So I extended the system right around the whole house. Our bedroom here, down the back, round the other side of the house, wrapped the whole house, and the difference was incredible. We were warm, and it dropped our fuel bills substantially. It didn't drop them as much as one might expect, because we had an interesting effect, and this is one of the side effects of insulation. Because your house is warm, it's heatable, you tend to end up running the heating more because it's just cozier. So if we'd run the heating at the same amount as often as we had before, it would have dropped our bills in half on a rough back of the envelope. But it dropped them by about a third, because like I said, we were running heating a little bit more often than before. But it was still very worthwhile. Now, and here we are 8 years after I did it. It's still in very good shape. We've had no problems with damp at all inside the house. I've occasionally had to go behind the cladding. I built this extension earlier this year, and I took all this end part off. I took some photographs, which I'll put up, include in this video. And the rock wall behind was dry. It was all in good shape. So I think the system has worked. There's been a lot of adverse publicity since I built it about the cladding systems that I mentioned, the unbreathable ones. In fact, a lot of people are having to have it taken off their houses now. So I think a system like this has got a lot of future. It's probably the way to go for exterior cladding in the UK.